Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. Here with another Velocity Banking review. And today is Thursday, and you know what that means. The best day to review Velocity Banking. Why? Because any day I review Velocity Banking is literally the best day to review Velocity Banking. We're going to go ahead and do that again. So what is velocity banking? It's a debt payoff strategy where you throw all of your money into debt using something called a line of credit. And if you don't know who I am, just a little flex here. I paid off a mortgage in 2 years and 9 months, and believe it or not, I did that in July 29, 2024. So it's yeah, it's kind of been a year already since I did that. It's either zero balance, lean position one. So got these I had these sunglasses on when I did that. Yeah, and it's just a little bit about me. In fact, here's my little old rental property that I bought in 2022. $100,000 discount. So, according to some people, I'm an amateur, which I actually believe because, next time I need to get like a $200,000 discount if I'm really good. And then first rental check for 14 grand. Actually, first one was on 23, but this was like the second rental check I got. So yeah, let's go ahead and see what we can do with our money when we have debt. So again, it's a debt payoff strategy. So what we do is we have to first create a budget. Remember, our budget is our debt attack plan, income, expenses, and then we have our leftover savings. And then in our expense breakdown, we list every single debt that we have, right? Every single debt that we have. And then right here, okay, you see four credit cards, an auto loan, student loan, mortgage, and then your general expenses that you have to pay for every single month, $2,000 a month, right? And so here, what we're going to do in the velocity banking column is copy the income and then the expenses, but we're not going to save money. Okay, so we're not going to save money, and then what we're going to do is increase something called our cash flow. So, this is very scary to a lot of people because what does this effectively mean? It means that when you look at your bank account, you're literally going to see zero for the most part until you have a bill to pay. Right? That's what it literally means. And a lot of people like it's a psychological thing. They're freaking out about this. They're like, I have to have savings. If I have some money in that checking and savings, it means I'm financially healthy. And if you actually talk to any banker about this, they will say the same thing, right? So if you say, you're trying to get any sort of a loan and you don't have any money in the checking account, they'll think like you're insane, right? But what's funny is that when you try to get a line of credit, they don't really care how much you have in your checking account. Like this is something I've noticed recently. You trying to get a loan, or some sort of a refinance, they wanna see what's in your checking account. You getting a line of credit, they don't really care, even a home equity line of credit. So, very interesting, how that works. So, in my opinion, it's actually easier to get lines of credit than loans. But yeah, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna make our line of credit as our main operating account, right? So difference between average American banking and velocity banking is what's your main operating account. So for the average American, the final destination of the money is a checking or savings, whereas velocity banking, it's the line of credit, right? Money comes into your check account and then it just goes out. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'll show you how that works, and I've done this over 1,000 times on this channel. So if you haven't gotten it by now, then I'm just gonna scratch my head and thinking, why not? Because people are like, well, you do this for free, and I still don't get it, and I'm just like, all right, well, look in the mirror. That's all I gotta say. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. And so what we're going to do is assume we have access to something called a line of credit. So what's a line of credit? It's a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay it back, and then use it over and over again. So this is my home equity. Actually, this isn't even mine. I'll show you my lines of credit. This is my home equity, $373,500 home equity line of credit right here, right? Home equity line of credit. So what does that mean? I go to the bank's website, click a button, bam, they dump up to 373,000 into the checking account. And then we have all these credit cards here, personal, business, personal, line of credit, you know. So anything that's a credit card swipe, right? You can just swipe it, but you can't pay everything for it. Like you can't go to a store and say, "Hey, I want to pay my loan with a swipe of a credit card." The only way you can really do that is using plastique.com. Okay? That's the only way you can do that. Um yeah, so here is my personal line of credit, right? Personal line of credit. So this is the latest line of credit that I got, and that is yeah, like a month ago. Who knows? I might get a new line of credit soon. And then if we sum them up, $739,000 in lines of credit total. Okay. I never thought this would be possible because I remember getting excited about getting a $5,000 credit card once upon a time. And then I didn't even know this, but it's like you can get a credit limit increase just by asking it over the phone, and then they'll do it. Right. I was like, why do they do that? And that's because here's the secret to banking. They don't lend money to people who need it. Right. And so, a lot of times people think like there's some magic way to get credit when you need money, and in my experience, there is not, right? Because how did I easily get these lines of credit? Well, it's simple. I just didn't need money, and I know, people think like that it's almost in a way kind of offensive, right? Because the way that they see money and the bank is that they think the bank is their savior because they actually market you themselves as their savior. Like, think about every time you see a bank commercial, it's usually like a small business or some sort of a farm, and they say, "Well, I'll be there for you when you need us," and then that's not true, right? Like you go to them when you need money, they'll be like, "What? That's ridiculous." Even though they basically said in the commercials they'll be there for you when you need us, right? And that's because they know from their statistics, from institutional knowledge, that people who need money don't pay it back. I know, crazy, right? Like people who need money do not pay it back. That's why they don't lend money to people who need it. So the you have to think of the bank as like a vampire, right? They want people who have fresh blood. People with fresh blood have lots of money and no debt. And then once they get the person with the fresh blood gets some debt offers, that's like the vampire getting some of that blood with its fangs. And then if the vampire drinks too much, right? Like you have too much debt, they're not going to lend you money. See how that works? A lot of people don't know that. Like, right? Okay. So, yeah, I don't know where y'all get the idea. I'm just kidding. Well, I understand where you get the idea from. That banks lend money to people who need it, but they don't. So if there's only one thing that I would teach you, even beyond velocity banking, is just like get a good foundation of how the system works. But the system doesn't really want you to know how it works. I mean, it's kind of like it's like a hidden in plain sight. You know what I mean? It's not like one of those things where it's like you find out, people will like, there's going to be people hunting you down for finding it out. It's not like that type of level of secrecy, but it's just hidden in plain sight. Like I made 1,000 videos and I don't know. I'm pretty sure I've told this to other people, but I still don't think they take it seriously. But whatever. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. And so we're going to assume we have access to a $150,000 line of credit. Let's do 8%, right? 8%. So my line of credit is 8.5. I've had 7.5. I had 10. So I've had tons of different interest rates. I think I've had 4 lines of home equity lines of credit in total. Now, if you only have $137 left over, is the bank going to lend you money? Is the bank going to give you a line of credit? The answer is no, right? Unless you have some sort of significant collateral or assets, the bank's not going to lend you money. And they're definitely not going to give you a line of credit, right? Because banks don't lend money to people who need it. And so how do we do this? Like how do we let's say why do we teach about you having a magically free and clear line of credit It's because this would have been your lifesaver if you had done things right, right? That's literally what would have happened. But you need to learn how to do things right, which is kind of like the whole point of this. So think of this as a scenario as someone who crashed a car without car insurance, right? Like if you crash your car without car insurance, wouldn't it be awesome if you could find a car insurance company that would grant you car insurance after you crashed your car? Yeah, it would be awesome, and that would have been a lifesaver, but they won't. But they'll easily grant you car insurance before you crash your car. See how that works? Like, so that's what I mean. Yeah, this is kind of like your lifesaver, but you have to know how to do it right, which a lot of people don't want to do. Now, I'm not saying that, and actually I talk about people who have money and they still don't do it right, right? Now, when you don't have money, the bank definitely doesn't lend you money unless you lie to them, right? Like you'll notice on every credit application, they say two things: what's your, or actually they'll just ask you your income, then they'll check your credit, but they don't know your income. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so how do we know? So this is the first thing what we're going to do is we're going to move some debts into the line of credit, and then we're going to pay off our debts using our entire paycheck into the line, take our expenses out, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. We just do it over and over again, right? And so how do we know which debt to move into the line of credit? I mean, cheat sheet here. You just use the high interest rate credit cards and buy now, pay later loans, right? Those are the easiest candidates. In fact, we actually did a live stream for 99 cents, right? YouTube channel members, 99 cents a month. For YouTube channel members, we have a live stream, and this is what we did. There was someone who had sent me a real life case study. This was their own personal situation, 22 debts with $4 left over. It was probably what I call the PhD of velocity banking. You want that? You become a YouTube channel member below. Okay, 99 cents. Okay. So, okay. So, what am I even doing? Something, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And you might be wondering, like, why do I lose my train of thought a lot? It's because when you pay off a mortgage in 2 years and 9 months, kind of really don't have to care, right? It takes a lot of discipline to do these velocity banking videos and then upload them every single day when you pay off a mortgage in 2 years and 9 months. People think, oh, it's going to be so easy. No, it takes a lot of discipline. A lot of discipline, because why do I have to care? But I know that if I am always in the habit of doing this, it's kind of like, you know, maintaining your, I guess, financial fitness, right? Like you don't want to get too cocky. So even if you're like Mr. Olympian, if you decide that you're going to eat hot dogs and pizza and French fries every single day, 5 times a day, you ain't going to be Mr. Olympia anymore, right? So you got to respect the process. Okay. All right. So we have this thing called the cash flow index here. And so what it is just a formula of the balance divided by the payment. And then it gives you an arbitrary number, which you can think of as a ranking. And the lower the rank, that's the ones you want to pay off, because basically this low number below 50 is telling you, hey, um, if you do this, right, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck for moving the debt, right, or paying off the debt. Because think about it. Would you give someone $200,000 just to get $843 back in your life? That's a hard sell, right? But if you give 30,000, you get $1,000. You get even more for less, right? So that's basically what the cash flow index is saying. Simple formula, easy way to determine which debts to pay off, especially if you have 22 debts. Again, be a YouTube member. I'm going to promote this so I can get my 99 cents. I need that 99 cents. Okay. No, actually, I don't. But I'm gonna pretend that I do, because it's for your own good. People who pay, they pay attention, and the more they pay me, the more they might possibly pay attention. Okay. Okay. So let's go ahead and do this. And so we take these low ranking numbers, which are the credit cards, right? So how much is this? 5, 8, 15, 30. And then this is going to be 58,000. So we're going to move 58,000 into the line of credit. Now, do we need the whole 150? Probably not, but does it, you might need it, right? In the future, which is why you always try to get as much as you can. Okay. And so 58,000, and so this is gonna be 0, 0, 0, 0. So by simply transferring that debt, the 58,000, guess what happens here? Oh my goodness, look at the savings. Look at the savings. It goes from $137 of savings to $2,110.42 of cash flow. Same income. Whoa, look at what we accomplished by having a line of credit and not saving money. This is amazing, right? We consolidated debt essentially. And then what we do is we move the entire paycheck into the line, take the expenses out, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. So after every single month, the balance will go down by $2,100, right? The balance will go down by $2,100. And so we'll just kind of do that calculation here. So this is going to be, okay, minus 2110.42. And so I'm going to take the average daily balance, right? Average daily balance, multiply it by the interest rate. And then so 0.08 divided by 12. All right. And then we're going to copy and paste. Okay. Copy and paste here. And then this is going to be 31 months. Okay. 31 months. And so, all right. So 31 months. And this is going to be 58K, right? So 58K, and this is all paid off. Okay. Took us less than 3 years, but you might say, wow, 3 years, kind of almost a long time, right? It kind of is, but you have to understand, we only had $137 when we started, right? So if you had a healthy level of savings where it's like 2 grand a month, then you get rid of this in no time, but you didn't start at 2 grand a month. See how that works? So, okay. Now what we do is these 3 loans right here, auto, student, and mortgage. And so what you need to do is possibly create a nifty calculator like this. In what is the year? Year 31. So I just do 31, 31, 31. Did I pay it off in year 31 or 32? I don't even remember. Frankly, yeah. All right. All right. So now, what's the point of this calculator? It tells us the current balance after a certain period, and so we have 11 grand in the balance. Then we have this low cash flow index here. So even it's a 3.5% loan, it's okay because we're going to pay it off relatively quickly because we're getting a lot of cash flow back. And then this is going to be plus 11618.67, right? And then this is going to be 0, right? No more car payment. And then we have 2,500 in our cash flow back. And then now let's see how fast it takes to get rid of this. So 2,528.83. And then we're going to do this. And then we're going to do this. And then this is going to be 36 months. And so 3 years we paid it off. We paid off the auto loan and the credit cards. We are doing well. 58 plus 23, and this is going to be 81K, right? And so do that. And okay. And then now we have the student loan and the mortgage. And so I'm just going to do 0, 36, 36. And so now this is going to be 46 grand. So we could just move this into the line of credit. It's fine. I mean, it's an 8% loan, 8% line. The thing that you have to be careful about, right? If this interest rate is low, okay, and you have this thing called the high cash flow index, which probably means you have a very long term, moving that entire loan into the line is probably not your best bet. In fact, you could probably, and this is specifically with regards to a 30-year mortgage, use a 30% credit card and it would be better than moving the entire loan into a line, right? Like don't again, unless you've kind of played around with the numbers, this is not very obvious at all. So this is why you can't just tell people, oh, move all loans into a line of credit. Almost by default, a loan will have a lower interest rate than a line of credit because their interest rate represents two things. Number one is how much risk do you present to the bank. This is why people with really bad credit, whenever they get an auto loan, it could be as high as like in the 20% range, right? 20% interest. I don't know if you ever seen those videos. What's this guy named in Atlanta? Yusuf. Yusuf from the automotive place. He all he does is show people with like the 20% credit, and with people who aspire to have the Mercedes, they're leasing it, and it's like they're all in bad situations, and they're because they have bad credit, right? So bad credit means higher interest rate, means that you're a bigger risk to the bank, but the interest rate generally represents the amount of access you have to the money as well. So the reason why they can, let's say, and I know they don't have 3% mortgages anymore, price a mortgage at 3%, or like that, set the interest rate at 3%, and they would never give you a $200,000, let's say 3% line of credit, is because it's going to be based on the amount of access you have. Because once you get the loan, you can't like freely access the money when you pay it back, right? This is why people are afraid to pay loans. See how it works? So what we're going to do, okay, is for now, because this is the 8 and the 8, it's kind of like you're not really worried about the interest rate. I'm okay moving this into the line of credit. But when you have a 3 and it's your mortgage, and you're only getting this itty bitty amount of cash flow for moving the 3% loan into an 8% line of credit, you might just be ending up paying more than you have to, right? Like 2 or 3 times more, which is ridiculous, right? So let me go ahead and do this. We're going to move this into the line of credit, and then Control V, and then this is going to be plus 46705.73. Okay. All right. And then this is going to be 0 on the student loan, right? And then now our cash flow is over 30 grand. And so, when I was doing the 22 debt or line debt payoff scenario, I was like, I don't remember how I did this, but once you get into the heat of it, right? Like once you get into the mix and put your mind to it, then it becomes relatively, actually, it's not easier, but once you become focused, it becomes a little bit easier, I think. All right, so now 51 months. Because 81 plus 60 is 141K. And then last one is a 30-year mortgage. So, if my mortgage is only $843, right? And now I have plenty of cash flow. At this time, you could decide what you want to do. Do you want an income generating asset? Possibly, an Airbnb, right? So if you take a look here, made 5 grand, 5,400 in July. Actually, a little bit more than that, because that doesn't count the Verbo income. But I was like, it's funny. I went on AirDNA, and if you don't know what AirDNA is, it's like a website that tracks, I think, short-term rental rates, like how much people are getting, or they call them short-term rental comps for comparisons. And I think because the area that I would have my house doesn't really have Airbnbs, or it's not like, you don't have a huge supply compared to, let's say, the city of Atlanta or Savannah or Blue Ridge, right? One of those touristy areas. Because you don't have that, um, like the AirDNA said that I was going to make like less than as a long-term rental. And so when I started it, I was like, okay, well, if this fails, then at least I have a nice vacation home to kind of like go to relax, because it's actually a 2-acre farm. And so it's kind of naturist. Naturist is not even a word. Um, what's a word to describe nature like? Whatever. I can't even think. My brain, literally Thursday morning, so I can't even think. But yeah, 2-acre farm, and it's really nice place. Now the only bad thing is, because it's in a rural area or semi-rural area, a lot of bugs, right? You go outside, and if you're not, I don't like to do pest control, but I know the tenants will want that or the guests will want that, which kind of makes me sad. But if I see a roach here or there, or maybe some bugs, I don't like freak out. But your average person is so like um domesticated that when they see like wildlife, like they're literally in a rural area. Well, it's not even a rural area, it's like 15 minutes from a city or 10 minutes from a city, but it's technically classified as a rural area. They freak out, right? Like if they see a roach, and we got some huge roaches here in Georgia, they literally freak out, and it's like they want to poison their environment so that because think about it like this: if the wildlife cannot live in your area, you can't live there too, and then people wonder like, why do I have all these health issues and cancer and everybody's getting cancer? It's like, well, gotta kind of pick your poison. Pun not intended, but really, it's true. Yeah, so basically, you could do a income generating asset like Airbnb, right? So if you want some income, 5 grand a month, maybe it'll take, usually the Airbnb arbitrage takes about maybe 25 grand at the minimum to set up. But when it's your own property, you're probably going to have to spend a lot more, probably 3 or 4 times more than doing arbitrage. But it might be worth it because it's just less of a headache and you own the property and you don't, you have a lot more control and you have the equity, right? So it just depends. So it depends on what you want to do. Me, I'll just, I do have a rental, but I don't see myself getting like 300 rentals. You know what I mean? So we'll see where we go from there. Hopefully I'll pay this off in a couple of years, and then now I'll have probably $800,000 of equity when this one is paid off, right? Hopefully, I don't know if I do. Maybe like I go crazy and I spend my line of credit and like uh I don't know, Vegas? I don't know. Actually, one of my friends in high school used to like take me to trips on Vegas to the most exclusive places for free. And that's why, like, sometimes when you get things for free, you don't really appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? And but if I went there myself, I'd probably be broke in like a couple of days. But yes, we can pay off a mortgage. And if we do so, we'll do something called chunking, which is just taking a piece of the loan into the line of credit. So what does that mean? So let's say what's our income? 6,100. So let's say we take $7,000 of the loan and move it into the line. It would just kind of look like this, and we do it over and over again, right? So our cash flow will stay the same. Okay. Our cash flow will stay the same because for amortized loans, the cash flow doesn't change until you pay off the loan, right? So you see how in 2 months it gets paid off, and then 2 months it gets paid off. So about every 2 months, and look at the interest that we're paying, right? Now you still pay interest when you make the monthly payment. So, but if there's an easy way where you want to pay off that mortgage, this is in my opinion is the easiest way. I'm not saying it's like the best way because you are still using an 8% line of credit to do this, right? But the effect I would say is minimal. If it Yeah, minimal. So why do I say that? It was because if you just kind of look at this calculator right here, and this is at a 10%. So let's do 7, no, 8%. See, the only difference between 10 and 8 is like only $300, right? So, when people say, "Oh my goodness, like 10% line of credit on a 3% mortgage," I was like, "You're gonna end up overpaying." And I guess you could because you're getting charged interest on that line of credit. But even if you use a 30% credit card, which I've shown here, it's like 3 grand more. So a lot of times people are like, why would you use a 30% credit card if you have the 7% line, or you could just dump it in? Because obviously the 30% credit card is going to cost more money, right? And the answer to that is the best credit decision is not the best financial decision. So if you want more credit, sometimes you got to pay the bank a little bit, right? So for example, with this business credit card, it was originally $10,000. And then I started swiping it, right? To set up Airbnb supplies and all that, start swiping, paid it off, swiped it. I'm pretty sure I had to pay some interest, right? And if I were going to do that on my mortgage and swipe it, then yeah, I might have to pay a little bit more. But when the bank sees that, that you have all this activity and your money is cycling through the card and you're responsible. Guess what? They want to increase your limits, right? To the point where you become irresponsible. Okay. You have to understand the bank's master plan. It's kind of like if you're a millionaire and you can easily pay off a $500 credit card, right? What's your master plan? Hopefully you get them to a huge credit card where the millionaire is going to drown. Okay, that's why they increased the credit limit rates. But they would never increase that $500 credit card for someone who doesn't have a job. Okay, like that's the difference, because someone who doesn't have a job and you give a $500 credit card, that's probably a write off, right? Like you have to write off that debt. Um, is that the right way to say it? Write it off or forgive it or whatever, right? But for someone who has $1 million and you give them a $500 credit card, they're going to pay you back. And if you constantly get paid back all the time, then how are you going to make money, right? So what they want to do is increase your credit limits, and then hopefully you become reckless, but not too reckless where you don't pay them back, but you're just making minimum payments over and over again, right? So yeah. Okay, so what's this one right here? 4 years. Actually, this is 7.5. No, this is 8. My bad. Yeah, 4 years. Okay. So this is why, like, when people freak out about the interest rate, and I actually have a nurse, or I know a nurse where she's freaking out because she actually got approved for a $175,000 line of credit. It's like, they didn't tell me the interest rate. They didn't tell me the interest rate. And I kept telling her, like, you could just ask them before you sign the paperwork, right? They're not trying to trick you. Like, these banks are heavily regulated, which is why they make you sign hundreds of pages of paperwork before you get the line of credit. Like, but they don't have to. They're not going to explain to you every single page, right? Like, so they're not going to do that. But because people, if it's your first time getting a line of credits, it's you get a little bit excited. It's the same thing with buying everything for the first time. You know what's funny? I bought a home before I ever bought a car. Like when I bought a car, it was actually like last year, my first new car, because I've always had hand me downs. So when I went to the car, before I went to the car dealership, of course I was a little bit nervous, right? Like, oh, real estate? Oh, that's easier. Anytime you do something for the first time, like you could be experiencing one thing and then the other thing, you're like, right? Even though it might actually be a simpler thing, you feel that anxiety. So because I've had lines of credit 8-10% interest rate, I've done all the math before calculations. Even if I do a 30% credit card, I'm like, whatever, no big deal. If that's my only tool and it makes my life easier and it's going to expand my credit, yeah, sure, I'll use a 30% credit card. It's not ideal, right? I don't want to. Yeah, I do want to save maybe a little bit of money, but I'm not gonna. If I have to pay the bank a little bit of money for access to more money, sure, why not? Because what is credit for the consumer? It's a money access multiplier, right? That's the main benefit of credit, folks. I have never saved 730,000 or anywhere close to this in my life, and I'm the top 0.01%. Okay. So, all right. So let's go ahead and do that. So, zero in what month are we? So, we pay. So, in 4 years, we paid it off, I think. Hold on. Did I do this right? That's what happens when you pay off a mortgage in 2 years and 9 months. You just kind of stop caring. 51 months, 181,356.37. I don't think it's gonna make a difference. 181,356.37. Yeah, 4 years. So, all right, 4 years. 51 divided by 12.4, which is 8.25 years debt free. Okay. And so now, maybe next time I'll do one where I do an Airbnb. I kind of did it, but when you have startup costs and stuff, it kind of fudges the numbers and you're doing approximations. Like, I don't know how people honestly evaluate a lot of real estate deals because the market changes so much. Insurance and taxes will change. And so, like, this is why I just kind of like to use like general numbers and not very specific numbers. And I think very specific numbers is for kind of reviewing your past financial performance. And then like general numbers can kind of give you a sense of where you are. And the other thing too is like, let's say anytime you're doing an investment, like rental property, if you actually needed the money, I would actually recommend you not do it when it comes to rental properties, right? Like if you depend on the $2,000 a month from the tenant, not the right time to get a rental property for you. Okay. Okay, well, that's it for today, folks. Korean Lanta Mentorship. So we're at the 34-minute mark because I just rambled on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And why did I ramble on and on? Because I paid off a mortgage in 2 years and 9 months, right? So that's what you can do, folks. Just ramble on and on and on. Okay. All right. Well, that's it for today. I might crank out another video. If you want me to crank out another video and you watch till the end here, put second video on the comments below and I'll crank out another video. All right. Have a great day and I'll see you on the next video.